First of all, when I entered here several times. I used to come here to book exhibitions. Today when I came, when I saw those photographs, I could recognize only three people from there. Lakshman Rao Sardesai, Akka Priyavardhan, and then Baki Babu. Then I felt ashamed that I don't know most of them. But one good thing what I realized the way Ramesh Bhaskar talked about this institute. This is a society which is registered. It's almost completing 100 years. Yes, probably the initial aspect must be a language, the identity of a language. But then what I understand from his talk is basically this society was established to further the interest of literature. Now that is the most important thing because this was formed in 1928. And these kind of a gathering, not today we have gathered in such a small number of people. The same kind of a gatherings in Europe which is the heart of literature. In Paris, for example, they used to come and meet in the evenings, and that in the French language it was used to call soirée. There is one Marathi word also soirée, probably that's connected to that. So it's a small people from field of literature, music, painting. They used to come together and discuss what is happening in the society. Now that was first time there was one of the greatest French writer, Marcel Proust. He wrote almost more than 3,000 pages novel. 3,000 pages novel in 6 volumes, In Search of Lost Times. There he described what were the things they used to discuss. And you imagine this is now the 6th generation of translators of that novel. And even now today, when Ramesh Bhaskar is talking, Vinayak Naik is talking, Shambhu he is talking, these are all very senior people for me. I look forward to them for anything and everything human life. So they are still talking of dedication to further literature. So this is something my generation, or personally we never valued this. But sitting here so quietly after my retired life, I feel that value for that. Today, in fact, I want to talk on that subject in my simple language is about Corona, but not on the medical side. It's something else. Now, Corona is something which suddenly came. That's what we feel. There was a sudden something which came, and everybody got dislocated. Whatever in our life, whatever the coordinates of our living, they got all disturbed. We were, first thing what we noticed that we were not prepared to face that. We were not prepared logistically, that is not the issue. The important thing was morally we were not prepared to face that. I am not talking about the health infrastructure or the state government apparatus which was not able to deal with that. That is never able to deal. Even any disaster, they always fail. But morally, as a society, all over the world, in spite of so much of development, particularly last 200 years in science and technology, particularly after the Industrial Revolution, we became helpless. We became vulnerable. A small technological development like air travel became vulnerable to Corona. Think 100 years back, suppose this Corona kind of a virus would have come. The kind of devastation what we see today would not have taken place because there was no much of air travel during that time. But see, the kind of technological development what we have attained as a human being in our civilization, how vulnerable we are if something happens to our nature. This one writer, psychologist Elizabeth Ross, American writer, She wrote some 5 stages where something unusual happens in human life, like cancer. Suppose I go for a testing and I get tested for cancer. It happens in human life. Or somebody in my family, suddenly I get a message that somebody dies in a road accident. Or in a family there is a divorce. Suddenly somebody in the family or me, I lose a job. Something unexpected happens in a human life. How human beings react to that? So the first reaction normally, the first stage is denial. We deny. Even if we get a corona, we deny. How it can happen to me? I was taking all the precautions. The second stage is anger. We get angry. Why it should happen to me? Third stage is bargaining. We start bargaining. Suppose some terminal illness like cancer is diagnosed. We say, no, doctor, you have to treat me because my daughter's marriage is still pending. I have to take care of my daughters. That bargaining starts. After bargaining, one important stage comes, and that remains for a long time. That is depression. And depression is something we don't understand when it starts and how we get engulfed in that depression. And many times, yes, we meet sometimes psychiatrists, we meet certain other doctors, we start medication, but nothing helps. Depression is something one has to undergo. Even the religion, even the meditation, the spiritual experience, nothing helps. Nothing helps. After depression, the last thing, and that's in fact a basic thing in human life, is the acceptance. Ultimately, in the final stage, we accept it. Yes. Suppose there is a cancer, you say yes. We either go to the hospital, go for some radiation or any other technology, or a lot of writers and even oncologists, the doctors who are treating cancer. What they do? They accept the condition of cancer and remain at home. They don't take any treatment. There's one Mr. Atul Gawande, who is a famous oncologist in America. He's probably going to work with the new president of America. He's from Bombay. His father was the first oncologist. He went earlier generation. Now he was diagnosed with cancer. He said, no, I am not taking it. Not to the New York Sloan's Hospital or any other hospital. I'll remain at home and I'll face it. Because that was their opinion that treatment, it kills you further than facing the disease. This is one way of looking at it. This corona, when it started, I was part of the administration. I've seen how state government reacts and how a small place like Goa, how the problem is due. It has 3 important kind of aspects. One was the medical. I'm not going to talk on that. You are all aware, all these years, these days in TV as well as in print media, about that medical, every day we have to go to see and look and discuss those issues. That was not much. The second aspect, because we all know now that most of us will survive corona because the death rate there is very limited and very less. But the second dangerous thing, which is part of corona, that's the economic impact. So that economic impact is going to be very grave, and this will remain here for next 3, 4, 5 years. And that economic impact is not only going to affect the poor, it's also going to affect the middle class. Even some journalists here, I know at the beginning when the corona started, some journalist friends with whom I slightly personally close, I asked them, Baba, is there any salary cut? Then they told me, yes, there is a 30% salary cut. So there is a loss of income, there is a loss of jobs. Some newspapers like Common Times was closed. Profit, yes, the traders are complaining that there is a profit loss. Now, if you see all these things, there are certain kinds of categories of people who were affected in all three. The third aspect, which I forgot to tell you, is the psychological aspect. Yes, there was a huge psychological impact on the society. Now, that psychological impact, as I was telling in the beginning, it went from all those angles. But depression was one of the very dominant kind of health. Depression and associated suicides, but anger also. If you see the digital media, which is now engulfed, our entire life is engulfed in the digital media. If you see the chats in our own personal groups, in a WhatsApp, you will find there was a pent-up anger most of people were expressing. Even when they are expressing and talking about current affairs, one fellow who is taking a part of one particular party, other fellow who is taking part supporting of another party, they start fighting in such a way as if it's a question of life and death. Now, this anger also is a part of that psychological thing. But that economic thing is hit in such a big way. And there are 2-3 categories I always see. All over the world, I am not talking for Goa. So all over the world, if you see the first category which got hit, and which got hit very tremendously was people, old generation, old and the retired. Now, old has a different meaning here in India. In the world, the Western world particularly, old means people above 80 years old. 80. Now, country like Italy officially took a stand that all those old fellows who have pre-existing conditions, blood sugar, whatever, blood pressure or heart or anything, they are not useful for the society. So there is no point in treating them in case somebody comes with a corona affected. Before that, before corona came, there was another European country, Hungary. They said, let us not admit any old persons in hospitals because they are absolutely not useful. So this was the same kind of a feeling during Nazi period, in the fascist regime. This was the same feeling. Let this old and the retired, let them get washed away in the guise of corona, and then this young like Suhas Breaker should enlighten our society. Now that was the feeling. Unfortunately, in India and in Goa, I don't see that. Because India, or say any other Asian country, Japan, China, any other country, there is a moral and ethical fabric which is intact. Goa, it is more intact. So there, a love for older generation, old and retired, it remains. For example, in Goa, a place like Goa, last week I had gone for a Women Vidyaniketan, this same kind of a function. That was the anniversary day for Women Vidyaniketan. I just asked this one Sitaram Tekse, normally I used to meet him. Where is he? His son was there. I asked his son, he is journalist. Sitaram Tekse, Ramakrishna Nayak. For me, these are very senior fellows, and normally whenever I go to Padgaon, I meet them. So these two fellows are in old age home. They are in a cinema. Not bad. They are taken care of. They are taken care. But surely what happens is, such an important people. We have also senior people like Vinayak Nayak, Shabu Babu. So these are also senior people. We never realize that in this kind of a corona, because corona is not something which is going to come, which is going to go with the vaccine. And this attitude started in a West, and normally we follow that West. Why the issue here again is life expectancy. Life expectancy has increased. It has increased by a decade in India. Goa, it is almost 75 years of age in Goa. Life expectancy in Europe and West America is almost 2 decades more. People are staying there up to 80, 90. I don't understand this life expectancy with this science and technology which was improved. What meaning it has? I'm not going into those other aspects of a generation gap where children are not taking care of the older generation. Yes, that fact even in Asia, even in India, even in Goa is so predominant. In Sneha Mandir, only I was called to give a lecture. So I went there, and most of them people were from Bombay and also because of the language I talked to them in Marathi. I could get a sense there that life expectancy which has increased of those old fellows, they were so off and then I started talking to them about their children, what they are doing. And the moment you go and talk to them in their mother tongue, they start crying. Now, some of the people they told me, even after the death of those senior citizens there, their children who were not in America, who were in Bombay, Mumbai, here in Kishore, not during Corona time, I'm talking before that. So, this is what we have done one side with the science and technology. Increase our lifespan, and this is how we are treating those people who are above 60s the way Corona started. The second category, that is, I can say 2-3 ladies here. Now, second category is housewives. Housewives, and in Western society, there is also a kind of working class which is called a home care. Normally, for elderly, in the middle class and higher middle class, they normally appoint one nurse, a paid nurse, or a home care staff, which comes and takes care of both children as well as the old people. Now, these two categories are extremely important, particularly the housewife. Because see, the job of a housewife, there is a labor in that. She has to do all kinds of labor activities. But there is an empathy which is added into a labor. It's not purely a labor. She is not just like a municipal or panchayat conservancy staff which is cleaning the road. No. There is empathy in that. And the pressure in Indian society for a housewife is there is a constant pressure to behave nice with your husband, with your children, with your relatives, and particularly after Corona, everybody was at home. And then it was and then the maid servant many times initially it vanished. And that kind of a situation, that kind of pressure housewives face all over the world, but mainly in Asian countries, that was a tremendous. And you can see they went through all those processes of anger, of depression, and finally acceptance of the life. Third category, maybe you may not relate, but still, as educated people from art and literature, migrant labor also is one of the important category that you see in our media, in different media. What kind of ordeal they face? See, one thing is very clear. It's a blue collar labor or a white collar labor like me. Both are nomadic. They cannot get jobs in their place of residence. They have to leave their place of residence. They have to leave their region. They have to leave their language. They have to leave their culture and go somewhere else. So that's part of life. A lot of Poles are also working outside. All over the world they are working. Everybody wanted to come back. Yes, in this kind of uncertainties like Corona, you feel, let us leave this work and go back, and the last time let us meet with our loved ones, whether it is our parents, friends, or family members. That feeling of poor or rich, everybody gets. Nothing specific to that. The psychological aspect of this Corona, there was one important issue which came was that pertained to death. So this is unconscious, always fear about death. Everybody carries that. We know, most of us we know that we are not immortal, but we take for granted that we are forever. We never suddenly confront them. This one famous quote of Havel, told by one famous Sufi saint, Rumi. It's an Arabic tale. I'll just tell you the tale very briefly, 1 minute. There was a prophet Suleiman in Arab country. So that prophet Suleiman, one day he summoned one of his Sardar, his region from different part of Arab. He came there, he met him, and he went in the evening for shopping to the market. And from the market, he came running back to the prophet, saying that. Then the prophet asked him, "What happened? I mean, why he was perspiring? What happened?" He said, "I went to the market, but see, there I met. In our language, it was Yamraj. He was a messenger of death. I met Yamraj, and that Yamraj was looking at me, and I don't want to die so early. So, prophet, please do something. You send me somewhere." So prophet said, "It's very easy. I will send it to India." And you know that's Arabic folk tale. So like in Arabian Nights, he told the wind, take him to India. So he was taken to India. But that prophet did very bad. Prophet is something that's almost Muhammad was a prophet. Muhammad Paigambar was a prophet. So this prophet Suleiman was all powerful. He summoned the Yamraj. Called him. He wanted to know what happened exactly. So he called that Yamraj and asked him, "Oh, what is this happening in my kingdom? One of my young Sardar, I called him and you were looking at him, you were threatening him. And now I send him outside." He said, "Sir, there was no issue. It was God's order to me to catch him tomorrow from India. And I was surprised how he is here in this Samarkand." No, this is the story. So this story in a place like Goa also. Once Manoj Parrikar told this story to his colleagues when probably they had gone to America. And one who was most impressed by this story was our then Mamsa Indian Minister Francis Joseph. One some meeting in Calcutta started telling me this story. I told him I am aware of that story. And I said, "What meaning you get, Francis, from that story is different." Francis was telling me the meaning of this story is there is a fixed kind of a predetermined fate or destiny, and that destiny we cannot negotiate. Suppose I am going to die today evening, come what may, I will die. No, that is not the moral of this story. Philosophers all over the world have analyzed this story, and what they say, you may or may not agree, because we Indians, we Goans normally we believe in a fate or in destiny. Western philosophers, most of them are atheists, they don't believe in it. But they are saying the moral of this story is not the inevitability of destiny. No. Moral says, yes, if death is coming, you should face it. If corona is coming, face it. Suppose in that day, when that Sardar had gone to the market and that Yamraj comes and starts looking at him. Yes, you should face him and tell him, "Yes, Babu, Yamraj, what is this issue? Why you are looking at him? Am I going to die tonight?" With this kind of a question, probably that Yamraj would have gone. All that I am saying is, this fear of death is the one which has affected most of us during the Corona. One another issue, as there are journalists I am talking, but I don't want to talk in a controversial manner or not referring about Goa. I am talking from all over the world what is happening. That issue is how the establishment, the governments all over the world function during Corona. I am not talking about Goa, so as clear. See, all over the world, in the guise of Corona, most of the governments all over the world, they centralize all their powers. See, that one thing is very clear, this kind of a pandemic. Our private sector or a market cannot deal. This is again. Even Corona started here in Goa, I have seen private hospitals just shut down. And after some time, when they opened, they started charging such a huge fees that was meaningless for poor or even middle class. So it was only the state and the state machinery which was involved, not only for medical, even for transportation of goods, services, everything. But it was also equally all over the world, all capitalist forces started garnering their patients for their aids to further more profit. This influenced the state governments, the establishment, and their agenda was put. Now that is a danger we do did in the initial period of Corona. But the danger is, even if this Corona gets over after say 2 years, 3 years, that centralized fascist control will continue. Because philosophers are saying when human beings are scared for their lives, it's a bare kind of existence. When suppose there is a threat to my life, I will not think much of literature or painting or music. I am concerned to save my life. That kind of a bare condition is the ideal condition for a fascist to take control of it. And somehow the establishment understands this. And the control, the central control will continue to be there and will pay further. And in that kind of control, the kind of capitalism which will take shape in a Western American English, that's not called capitalism, it's called barbarism. It's a barbaric capitalism which will further. This I am telling you because this I have seen. Most important thing this small gathering which I wanted to talk is, do we learn anything from the history? And what is our relationship between man and nature? That was the one thing I wanted to talk to you. Very briefly. See, there was one philosopher, again, he was a precursor of, almost you can say, guru of Karl Marx, Hegel. Hegel is a German philosopher. He said, what do we learn from history? He says there is only one thing we learn from history. And that one thing is, we don't learn anything from history. That is the thing. What he said is, see, there was a SARS virus here, there was Ebola, all kinds of viruses here. Epidemiologists have already warned us, this kind of virus will attack. There were famous Hollywood films like Contagion. Contagion, if you watch Contagion, exactly shows what happened during the earth. You watch in Amazon or any other place. So, people were aware, but we never thought that it would come and we should prepare for that. Why I am telling you this is the important lesson what Corona is teaching us. Now that lesson is, Corona is a grace rehearsal. Corona crisis is a grace rehearsal for a very severe kind of a catastrophe or a problematic case which humanity is going to face all over the world, and that is a climate change. See, already the effect of climate change are visible all over the world. In India, even in Goa, our monsoon is totally affected. Our seasons are altered. Either you have a drought kind of condition, or other you have a gar-putti or a dhak-putti, and excessive rains. You have storms, you have frequent warnings of cyclones, low pressure areas. We will be in a very sensitive place for plains of Sahyadri, what Lakshmana Sardesai wrote, Sahyadrisha Pashyasi, that we are on the foothills of Sahyadri and Arabic Sea. It's such a vulnerable position. Climate change is one of the such an important thing which is going to be already. In fact, I am from a farmer's family. Last 10 years or almost 15 years, farmers are committing suicide. One of the reasons is the various things associated with climate change. The other important reason is what they are borrowing, credit. Credit is one of the important things which is eating them. But see, climate change also is one of the important things where they are losing the crops. Last more than 1 decade, 10 years, every half an hour, one farmer is committing suicide. But somehow we are not paying heed to that. We are used to it. And cumulatively, if you calculate this figure, it will be very huge. Corona figure is very limited. Very limited. And up to the all farmers which commit suicide all over the world, 1/3 are Indian farmers. Now, climate change is something globally people have understood, West has understood, but the issue with the West is Europe and America, they have already done their development. It's we, countries like India, they have not done much. And any development we want to do, it is based on a burning of your fossil fuels, whether it's oil, petroleum products, or coal, or natural gas. So without burning these fuels, we are not going to grow. And most of the climate change negotiations, what you read in print media or in TV, what you watch, these are basically political negotiations. These are not based on the environmental matter. One who is powerful is saying, West is saying, America is saying, Europe is saying, that our lifestyles are non-negotiable. We will not cut down on our air conditioning things, either in office or in vehicle or anywhere else. It's the developing world like India and China, they should start. So climate change for me is the most important thing. And associated issue comes, and that's the last thing what I want to say, is our relationship with the nature. You know, one of the journalists from Germany, Alan Weissman, he wrote a science fiction book. He was a journalist, but he wrote a science fiction book, The World Without Us. In that book, he says that the conditions on the earth, on this planet, are not hospitable to the human beings. See, one thing you should realize, that on this planet earth, human beings came little later. It's not only the animals or the bird, but even the living and non-living viruses. Millions of years they were there, they will be now and they will be in future also. So all these people, even the viruses, have a right to stay on this planet. We are not alone. But when the conditions are going to be inhospitable on this planet, that inhospitality is going to be faced by the human beings. So there is a possibility. Scientists are saying that human beings will vanish on this planet. So, as a science fiction writer, he said, what will happen? That moment, in the slow fashion, when the human beings vanish before the sun vanishes. Technically, the entire biodiversity of this earth will come back. All that animal world, plant world, all those viruses, they will come back. And this planet, what we call Vasundhara, will be full of life. So my issue here is human being. Right? For millions of years, we have attacked nature in the name of science and technology, in the name of development. What we have done is we have continuously regulated, attacked nature. And now, this is the last thing I want to say. This is the time, it's the nature which is giving us back. And we will accept.